As the Smiths, I think, once said, heaven knows I'm miserable now. To cry or to laugh, I'm really not sure which. What an incredibly bizarre weekend, from Kel Roberts getting a tattoo live on Instagram to a sacked Faroe Isles coach being made odds-on favourite to take over the reins at Meadow Lane. Don't worry too much. That was an enterprising Notts fan manipulating the bookmakers market. Coventry under-23s coach Luke Tisdale is now the bookies' favourite. Whether there's any truth or merely the fact that someone has stumped up a fiver with Bet Victor, not quite sure. The widest ever gulf between ourselves and Nottingham Forest as a result of their promotion back to the Premier League yesterday, and I think they deserved it, and they've done very well under their new manager. To dissect this and more, Mark Stallard joins me. Chloe Page will be with us very shortly. Now, I seem to have frozen on my screen. Stell, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay, yeah.
Yes,
okay.
We seem to have had a complete freeze. Am I not moving on the video screen, by the way?
No, you look fine to me, but
Right.
if anything technological needs to happen, I'm not the man.
Right, okay. If you can hear me, that's fine, and I am moving about. My screen's frozen. You've got your eyes half shut. I've got my rather large forehead stuck at the front of the screen. However, if it's working, it's working. There's a lot to get through tonight. And we talk a lot about stats. I'm sure we'll be talking about recruitment. Clearly, we will be talking about a new head coach. But I don't think we should ever forget that football fundamentally is a game of emotion. And this has come from Matthew Rimington onto one of our Facebook posts earlier this afternoon. And I think it's very good. I know Matt. I've travelled with him to Dover. And anyone that went to Dover for that midweek game at the third time of asking is a proper fan. This is what he's got to say. Never have I questioned my love for Notts quite as much as I have since last Monday. I've spent countless hours of my life, God knows how much money, and suffered constant ridicule in the last 35 years. It's pretty much all been one-way traffic following Notts. You give everything and get next to nothing back. Year on year, it seems to get worse and even more disappointing than the previous. I really fear next season will be worse still, looking at some of the names currently being talked about. This is a make or break summer for our owners and the club as a whole. I think it's fair to say, Stel, that one's from the heart, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And then that is how football gets you. That is how following a team and you know, it being such a way of life, it gets you. It does affect you. Right, funny, just seeing the playoff results with Notts being that affects you. Seeing, Grimsby and Solihull playing with a chance to get in the Football League. Why the hell isn't that Notts? Why the hell is it not Notts? And it does, it affects you. You see the other players, you see the joy that, Forest have had in the last 24 hours, Port Vale the day before that, and the agony for Mansfield. It is an emotional roller coaster being a football player, fan, support. Anytime you link with football, it because you love it. We all love it. There's no reason we wouldn't put ourselves through the ringer for it. And certainly fans who travel, like say, down to Dover on a cold Tuesday night for a third time of asking, paying on good money to go and follow the team. That is, it makes no logical sense, though they do it for love, and that is an emotional thing. It's an emotional attachment to a club, but unfortunately, with football, once that emotional attachment's got you, it doesn't let its claws out of you. And yeah, I'm sure loads of football fans around the country following each different team are hurting and disappointed and disillusioned at this moment in time. But you know what it's like. Give it 3-4 weeks without any football, and we'll all be chomping at the bit, ready for the new season to come around, full of hope and expectation of what the new season is to bring. So yeah, it is an emotional roller coaster. Football, there's no two ways about it.
Comments from the guys. Chris Gosling, evening all. Surprised there's a podcast tonight. Not really much to talk about. Darren Smart, just another. Oh, blimey. And there's life. There's life on here. Oh, my apologies. I can see you, Stel. You're moving. Am I all right now?
No, I can see Colin Slater.
Right. Okay. Right. Well, we'll keep going. It's apologies for the technical gremlins, as if nothing else could go wrong this weekend. Now then, I like to entertain you, Stel, with entirely useless statistics. Okay. You will remember.
It can't be any more useless than that last one. You delved out to me.
Oh,
Minutes per point
no.
per minute or something.
I've got to say, Stel, this one is close. Okay, it runs it a very, very close second.
All right,
Now,
go on. Shall I go get a pillow?
table,
Is it going to put me to sleep? This, go on.
yeah, there's been a table produced today. You know how some sections of our fans have kind of got on board and embraced the owner's statistical and data analysis approach. So this one is called National League Offensive Actions. So there's
not offensive as in flipping the V's or giving someone attacking actions. Is that, shall we say?
Yeah. Offensive as attacking wise. Okay. So
right.
Someone's come up with a measurement. Yeah. Divided it by the square root, hypotenuse, you name it, and come out with what I think the maximum can be 1, whatever that means. So offensive actions. Okay. And always with these stats, we do talk about how people like to manipulate stats to prove whatever argument is they're wanting to prove. So have a guess who is top of the National League offensive actions this year?
What, as a club or an individual? Are we talking?
So this is club, yeah.
I would say Notts would be up there.
Absolutely, Notts are top. We've won something. Completely useless, doesn't make a blind bit of difference, but we are top when it comes to offensive actions in the National League. 0.924. No idea what that means. Second, a Stockport, 0.824. And I can just see Paul Hurst in his little office at Blundell Park, or whatever they call Grimsby's ground these days, cursing away to say, damn it, lads, although we're at the London Arena, we only came 8th in the National League offensive actions table, 0.652. There you go.
We're top of that by quite a way. Point 1 out of 1 is a hell of a margin to be top of that. So, hey, again, maybe that backs up the fact that we had plenty of ball in the opponent's area or in the opponent's attacking or defensive third, and we didn't do as much as we should have done with it. We're top of that list, but we're not top. We're 4th top goal scorers. So our efficiency when we got into the final third could be questioned, I suppose. But again, you'd have to put the context on that stat for me to know exactly what that's analysing.
I'm with Matthew Remington. I don't think there is any context for that stat. I think we just create statistics to try and manipulate the absence of not achieving what we should achieve, which fundamentally is promotion. But let's not get too carried away. But anyway, that's another stat. So as we are on air, and it's happened live, so we have signed Toby Adebayo Rowling. Now, I don't know how many shirts will have his name on the back. The shirt will cost 40 quid. The numbers to buy them will cost about another 65 quid to have his shirt. Attacking right wing back or right back, we've seen from the press statement issued by the board of directors, and I'm sure we'll be dissecting a little bit recent comments from the board of directors in terms of players re-signing, new signings. Thoughts on that one?
Well, don't know the player. Obviously, don't know the player. But he's sounds like a Jaden Richardson replacement, doesn't it? You know, right wing back. The thing for me, Paul, and I'll say this, you know, no matter what, at any club, always find it strange when you sign players when there's no manager in place. You know, with Ian Burchnall gone, Michael Doyle gone. You know, this maybe gives a bit more of an insight into Notts' recruitment model. You know, is it Richard Montague and the data boys that have gone out and found this signing, or as part of me suspects, they've been in contact with whoever is going to be announced as the new manager and maybe he's okayed this as a signing. Again, I don't know, but yeah, it always seems a little bit strange when a manager's gone. There's no manager in place for a club to be signing players, but maybe that's an indication of they had to act. Maybe this lad's well in demand, and they had to act now, or he'd be gone. So, like I say, it's the new model, isn't it? It's the new way in football that managers or head coaches are given players and go on, put them into a team, coach them, rather than the old managerial model where the manager picked every single player. So interesting. Don't know exactly how it's worked that, but well, we'll come to recruitment is everything. I think that's the bottom line in football. It's just about everything. You can have everything in place, but if you haven't got the right players and you have the right blend and the right fit, then you don't get there. So hopefully this lad is a tremendous signing, and hope he has good times ahead for Notts.
Okay, some more comments then. Darren Smart, just another day at the office in the soap opera that is Notts County. Chris Gosling, Lewandowski announced he's leaving Bayern. Coincidence? Yeah, a tad optimistic. Evening from Chris, Andrew Blatherwick, Duncan Comrie, Ian Burchnall, PJ Defiance, plenty of others as well. Derek Flowers, Andrew Blatherwick. We're just getting Chloe online. Welcome, Chloe. We'll let get yourself sorted. Ian Burchnall, the fan. I hope my presence doesn't cause any stress to any fans, but the rumours of my departure are wrong. I'll still be here for next season. Northants Pie says our new man is quicker than Jaden, apparently. He should be in the British Olympic squad then, shouldn't he, if he's that quick? What else have we got coming in? Chris Gosling, can you put all the managerial options on Stell's dartboard and get Stell to throw a dart and see who we will appoint?
We've done that for the last 25 years. As it's not been disclosed, that's how we've picked the last 25 years of managers. We're not going to do that going forward. Come on, let's use data.
Hey, good one there, Stell. Chloe, welcome.
Hi, Paul. You're right.
Hi, Chloe.
Yes, we're very good. All the better for your arrival. Have you seen our new signing that's just been announced?
Yes, I had a very quick look whilst I was in the car on the way back from work. Sounds good, sounds quick, so we'll see what happens.
Indeed, we will. Where to start? I tell you what, let's get on to the manager thing, because we've got to get onto that. So I think some of you will be aware, but I'll just go through it now in terms of the managerial situation and the fact that a gentleman called Kim Engstrom from Denmark, who had managed in the Faroe Isles for 12 games, suddenly became the odds-on favourite in the betting market. And all weekend, I think it's fair to say, us Notts fans have been having kittens. I wouldn't even make him Ian Burchnall light. I wouldn't make him Ian Burchnall 2.0, Ian Burchnall 3.0, Ian Burchnall 4.0. But we can all breathe a sigh of relief. I'll just cross my fingers. Apparently, it was an enterprising Notts fan who decided to have a bit of fun and contacted the bookmakers, having looked at the most unlikeliest Danish coach he could find, who he could kind of have a bit of a run on with the bookies. So he puts his fiver or his tenner on. The bookies open the market dutifully with Kim Engstrom as an odds-on favourite. Cue meltdown on social media. And I heard a little whisper about this earlier today. So we were going to have a bit more fun with it tonight. But it would appear that the supporter concerned decided to fess up this afternoon. And so rest assured, everyone, those of you who weren't aware of this, Kim Engstrom has not been approached by Notts County, nor will he be approached by Notts County. But I think it was all quite entertaining that a Danish guy who lasted 12 games in the Faroe Isles Premier League before being sacked had suddenly gone to the top of the betting market. So you can strike him from the list. You can strike him from the list. Stel, what do we look for in a new manager of Notts County Football Club?
Well, I think you've got to look, because of the model that the owners have wanted to put in place, I think you've got to look for a bit of continuity, as close to that as you can get. That's not saying you've got to find a clone of Ian Burchnall, because everybody manages and coaches slightly differently. They all have different personas. But I think what you can't do, because there hasn't been a massive, or there isn't going to be a massive turnover of players, you can't suddenly go, we're going to bring in a manager who wants to play a different style of football, because that involves a different style of player. And we have got a big amount of players still under contract, still remaining under contract from last season. So it's got to be somebody who is going to follow a similar model in terms of how they play, you know, the passing, progressive football that I think everyone's got used to this season. But you'd like to ally that with somebody who has, you'd like them to have had success, to know what winning is, you know, and I know that's, you know, what is winning, what is success. Everybody can put their own thing, but I'd love to know somebody who's actually achieved something, you know, because I think that just carries a bit of gravitas.
Yeah.
To complete the absolute perfect model, and with a view to what's just happened with Ian Burchnall going, and must admit I'm disappointed to see him go, but obviously, you know, these opportunities come along and you have a decision to make. Is I'd like somebody who's got an attachment or an affiliation with the club, because that might then preclude the next time somebody comes sniffing of a manager just up in and going. But again, to get all that in one package might be very difficult. But yeah, I would, first and foremost, I would like somebody who's achieved something, you know, somebody who's won something.
Okay, very good as always, Stel. Chloe, the young millennial approach. I'm not sure. Who was your first manager when you came to first watch Notts? Who was your first manager?
It might have been Ince. I think it was Ince. Other than maybe Martin Allen. Definitely, Martin Allen's the one I remember.
Yeah. Okay, well, we've had quite a few since then. So some haven't lasted very long. Same question, Chloe. I mean, who would you? I say we'll talk about individuals in a moment. But what sort of identikit, you know, when the police pull these identikits, what sort of identikit do you want to come in as? I think it's going to be head coach, not manager, quite clearly from the messaging that's come out from the board of directors.
I mean, like Stal says, you need to tick as many boxes as you possibly can. It's going to be difficult to tick them all. And we've all got a long list of things we'd love from a manager. For me, the biggest thing is have worked in the lower leagues, the knowledge behind the lower leagues, knowing the style of football you need to get out of it, whilst having a good relationship with the model that we want to build. Like Stal says, I think the disappointing thing for me personally about Burchnall was it seems to be every time we try and rebuild something, a manager leaves. We have them for a season. Obviously, it was a little bit different with Ardley. We had COVID, etc., new owners, lots of different things. But from the past 10 years, it seems to be, we'll give them a year, and you think they obviously need more than a season to rebuild the team that they want and get a relationship with our owners. And as soon as you kind of think, well, they've had a season at it, let's see where we can go from here, because we can have a whole new season with exactly who they want. They're gone. Whether that's from us sacking them or them leaving, or so it's difficult. I just kind of want to see someone like Stal says that just wants to stay and rebuild for a little bit, because I think that's what we're looking at with the new owners. Obviously, they've only had a couple of seasons at it, with one of those being in COVID, and then obviously the season that we've just had, and now it's not a restart in terms of ownership, but again with a manager, they've got to get a manager on board, then the players have got to get on board. So I think the players will respect someone that has kind of been around the lower leagues to get that relationship built. But I like Stell says exactly that they've got to work with the model. That's how it is. So it's hard to say I want this old school manager, kind of your Stockport managers, your Grimsby managers, your I don't know, your Chesterfield managers, and try and get out the league that way, because that's not what we're trying to do. So realistically, we're not looking at managers like that. So that's kind of not crossing my mind at the minute. Obviously, there's a few candidates on the betting list that means nothing. Of course, you go, oh yeah, I'd like him to come down and sort us out and get promoted, but it doesn't work like that. So it'll be very interesting. But like you say, I think we're going for a head coach, which I'm less familiar with head coaches as I am managers across the leagues. But that's our approach now, and we'll see what happens from there.
I guess the model, we talk a lot about the model stuff. I think it's going to be interesting whether the managers, or whether the owners go, because none of us know, whether they're going to go for an absolute like for like replacement for Ian, or whether, listening to the points you've made, listening to the points that other people have made, are we going to have someone with, I don't know, a bit more clout, a bit more autonomy? And I think that will tell us quite a lot. On the face of it, Luke Tisdale, Coventry under-23s coach, who announced his departure from the club this afternoon. No announcement as to where he is going. Clearly, he must have something. But he could be going to a variety of places. It could be to a Premier League club in an age group. It could be to a League Two football club. It could be to us. I don't think anybody knows. I will be very interested. If we're going for like with Ian, we fish in I don't know, I welcome your views. We fish in a much smaller pool of talent, don't we? A much smaller pool of talent.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is where, whenever there's a manager to be chosen, this is where you've got your hierarchy of a football club. Now, this is where it's on the owners and the board to make their decision to get the right man in place. You always need the right people in the right positions. And what I think the owners, the Reach brothers, what I think they've been absolutely flawless at is appointing a manager and letting them get on with it. Backing them, but letting them get on with it. They are not owners that want to be plastered all over the papers. They're not wanting the attention. But this is where owners do have to earn their corn, if you like, to sort through the wheat, or sort through the chaff to find the wheat. You know, they've got to find the right head coach, manager, but they've got to decide that structure. They've got to decide all that before they make an appointment and get the right man that fits the structure that they want. Now, I see that as being sort of a continuation based on the players that we've got. Based on, I don't see I mean, I've no idea, but I don't imagine the budget's going to change massively in terms of player salaries. So it's going to be a similar scenario to what we had last summer when Ian was in charge. And I think, like I've said, you're not going to bring in a Kevin Nolan or a Gary Johnson who wants to play direct football, because we haven't got the components to particularly do that. If you want to do that, then you've got to be prepared for a fair amount of change within the club. That's in personnel of players. So I think it'll be similar. I think it'll be a very coaching-based head coach, if you like, which sounds ridiculous, but somebody who coaches the modern style of football, playing out from the back, passing, aggressive, with pace. And I think if that signing, again, this lad from Ebbsfleet, we don't know anything about, but if he's full of pace, then I think that's very much a modern day take on football. Wing backs with pace to take the opponents back, almost playing as wingers. They become attacking options more than they are defensive options. So it's got to be, if that's the way you're going to go, then you have to identify what you think is the best person to tick them boxes to go, let's have a look at the coaching CV. What do they do? What's the style of play? How do they do it, basically? And we might, like I say, it might end up with somebody, if it is Luke Tisdale, again, don't know him. Somebody who's going to come from sort of obscurity, from a coaching background, and be given a head coach position and say, go on then, off you go. But, again, this is where the owners have got to have absolute clarity of what they're after and set the stall out, and then lay that down to the head coach, as it will be, and say, this is how we're going to do it. And by the way, we've signed players, we're bringing players in now, and we've released players. So again, if they've not been party to that, it's you're going to deal with the players that we're going to give you, and you're going to make them into a team. Would it be the way I'd like to go? I mean, it's not exactly the way I would say is optimum, but when a manager walks out or leaves, as Ian Burchnall did, you're in a little bit of the lurch, and decisions have to be made quickly. But what you don't want to do is jump into making the wrong managerial decision, because that then does stump you going forward.
I've spoken with the club today. The phrase that has been used in terms of a timescale of announcing a new head coach is nothing imminent. So read into that what you will. Would suggest to me, don't expect a press conference at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. We'll see. Chloe, let's dive a little bit into names. Who would you like to see?
I mean, I quite like the sound of the Gateshead manager. Is it Mike Williamson?
Yeah.
If that's the name. I like the fact he's won something in a lower league. So by the sound of this new signing, is a league that they've played. If he's playing as a wing back, as how we like to play, they've obviously, like I say, they've won something in the lower leagues. He's got something under his belt. He's now aiming higher. Look, I don't know a lot about him other than what he's done this season. There's a couple of names floating about that are just no chance of. There's not even the point of thinking about it. As for the guy at Coventry, he's been there a long time, so he's got some loyalty about him. The only thing with head coaches, especially young head coaches, I fear, and maybe it's because, like I say, we've just had Ian walk out, whether I understand that we're always going to be a stepping stone, being a National League club, but it's what they want to take out of us, in the sense that, are they looking for a short-term role to get themselves in the window? I'm not saying that this is what Burchnall's plan was from the beginning, but maybe some young managers are trying to showcase some decent football at a lower league level and showcase that to a higher league club, and then just kind of jump off the ship and they've got something better and they're not bothered. Which you could say about managers as well. I just worry a little bit that I'd like to see a rebuild. I'd like to see someone stay for a couple of years, see what we can actually do, because realistically, if we get promoted, there's no way we want to be dropping back down. No team since we've been relegated has then won the playoffs or got promoted automatically, has come down again. And I think as soon as we get playoffs, we need to be kind of flying a little bit, take the momentum. It's worked for everyone else, and start getting this ball rolling a little bit. But obviously, getting out of this league is at the forefront of everyone's mind. But I just like to think that if we did get promoted, we'd stick with the manager or the head coach, and they'd want to stick with us for a little bit and get something going. But that's in a dream world, isn't it? I mean, if a Premier League club comes calling, and even if it's not obviously first team coach, even if it's their reserves, I mean, anyone's really going to jump ship. But just to have somebody that, like Stall says, that maybe has an affiliation with the club or just know he's going to stick around for a little bit. But I'm sure we're built on statistics. So whoever we appoint, we're going to have looked deeply into them, looked at their style of play, hopefully look at what's on their CV and what they've won and go from there. But it's difficult because, like you say, the odds on National League managers can change very easily by one fan putting a fiver on, because realistically, who's having a bet on Notts County's next manager? I mean, you just have no idea. So I wouldn't read too deeply into the odds. I know it's hard to check because we've got nothing else to look for in our day, and quick look on Google and who's gone up today, because it changes every 5 minutes. But no, I won't read too deeply into it. But yeah, I'm excited to hear something, I'm hoping, in the next couple of weeks and get the ball rolling for the summer.
Well, it appears since Lee Curtis made his farewell appearance on our show last week, Stel, and he gave us a bit of an insight into the bookmaking markets and how they operate, these small online markets, National League club managers. And it appears several of our flock decided to see what they could come up with. Chris Gosling has fessed up tonight. To be fair, I asked Bet Victor for odds on Andy Reid, who wasn't listed at the time. And they put him in at 4th favourite, even though I didn't put any money on it. So all weekend we've been, Andy Reid, yeah, it'd be great. And it's half of our flock putting a fiver, or not even putting a fiver on. It just shows you how these things work. Still, it gives us something to study, doesn't it, over the weekend? What else have we got? Kane Porter. We've made his night because we've now confirmed that it was all a bit of a bookmaking sting by a Notts fan on Kim Engstrom. He says, I think it'll be the Coventry guy now, and I think I'm happy with that. Here's a few other names. Andrew Blatherwick, Andy Woodman. Knows the league and won the FA trophy. Probably a little too direct for the owners. Dale Pikett, Mike Williamson for me, the Gateshead manager. Ian Burchnall, Woodman has the same effect on me as Evans does. He just annoys me and I wouldn't be happy if it was him. Ian Burchnall adds that either the Boreham Wood manager, that's Luke Garrard, or the Gateshead manager for me. What else have we got? Chris Gosling, someone I work with, I love all these, they're great. Someone I work with has a lad at Coventry. He speaks really highly of Tisdale. Their under-23s have done well this season. I think they finished 2nd in their league. I wouldn't be averse to this appointment. Derek Flowers, make Chloe our coach. She knows what is needed. We've got a few Grimsby fans on tonight. Aaron Broom among them. Darren Smart says Phil Parkinson from Altrincham. I think Altrincham are going full time next year. What else have we got? York City's manager, they've gone up. Yeah, I noticed this, Josh Shaw. The only Andy Reid that has been in the betting market is the ex-Hearts manager. I don't know whether Chris specified which Andy Reid or whether Bet Victor just didn't have a clue who he meant. Maggie Grant says hello, or hello to Maggie. Okay, Stel. Potentially in looking for an Ian Burchnall type character. We have lost Michael Doyle, by the way, to confirm that announcement was only made tonight. Typically on social media, Michael Doyle gets pelters for not saying goodbye. The reason for that was Michael Doyle's contract was not agreed last week. And although Ian Burchnall mentioned it at his press conference, Michael hadn't agreed a contract at Forest Green until earlier today, hence why you hadn't heard anything from Michael. I'm sure you'll be hearing something from him very soon. But my point, Stel, so we have the two brothers. Underneath them, their main, if you like, football man at the club is Richard Montague, who has worked with Football Radar rather than a professional football ground. We have, as I understand it, a variety of student video analysts. Is there enough football knowledge in the club without us currently having a manager or a head coach, A, to be making the retained list, and B, to be signing players?
I'd like to think there's enough football knowledge. Is there enough football experience? That's something I questioned, right from the first appointment of sort of Ian Burchnall, and that's the one area where I do think, and not just Notts, but I think quite a few clubs can utilise football experience more. There is no substitute for it. There is no, it's why you have specialists in all industries. You know, people that know an industry generally stay within an industry. So I certainly hope that they're picking brains of people with football experience, even if they don't need to formally be in roles at the club necessarily. But if you do look at it at brass tacks level, with Michael Doyle gone, there is nobody at the club who has actually played the professional game.
Yeah.
You know, and apart from the players, obviously, but on the sort of coaching, managerial, and you know that side of it, there is nobody that's got experience of that. And I think, like I say, if you were analysing everything, if you were analysing, you know, where would you see a weakness potentially? And at the minute, could that be a bit of a weakness, a bit of a blind spot for Notts? Yes, I'm sure it could. But there's no end of people who've got that experience, you know. So I hope they lean on that. But again, we are coming down to that. You know, if you're going to go with a head coach that doesn't have foot, if we're going to say Luke Tisdale, which we have no idea to know, but he's just people putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with something. At the minute, we'll find out whether that's 4 or 24. But you know, if it's him, then maybe need somebody with more experience alongside him, experience of the game. But then Ian came in with no football experience of playing really at any sort of professional level, and did well. You know, did okay. You know, did fine. Michael Doyle alongside him, who had no real experience of coaching. You know, so in an ideal world, Paul, the short answer is yes. I would like them to have some more football experience in and around the decision-making process. But look, the model is the model, and that's how it works.
Right. We'll have a bit of fun. So Callum Frankton Lees, Stel, have a word with your good lady. Tell her you are not considering a career choice, a change of path. Have a word with Radio Nottingham, because there's a few of our flock are considering putting a fiver, ringing Victor, and putting a fiver on you for the manager's job. So let's just see. Go on, lads, weigh in. Let's see whether we can get Mark Stallard up to odds-on favourite to be the next county manager.
I'm not reimbursing anybody. I wouldn't even have me each way.
Well, I tell you what. Let's be honest. You've got to be a marginal upgrade on Kim Engstrom, haven't you?
I have no idea who Kim Engstrom is, and I'm pretty sure he's no idea who I am either. So we're quits in that respect.
You have at least heard of Notts County. Right, okay. Neil Collins, yeah, that's another one that's coming today, Harry Crowsdale. Neil Collins at Tampa Bay is second favourite with the bookies. His assistant manager is the one and only, yes, I did clock this, John Stead. I mean, it's quite funny, really, isn't it? I mean, Chloe, I'm sure there'll be some more names coming in while we're on air. Let's just wind the clock back a little bit from when we were last on it to the departure of Ian Burchnall. Give me your take on Ian leaving the club, because you are a completely different generation to me and to Stel.
I think. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I've got you now.
Okay, cool. It was a weird one. Funny enough, as soon as Forest Green had got rid of their manager, I think it might have been Lincoln at the same time. I think it was to my dad, that'd suit him, to be fair. I never in my wildest dreams thought that he was leaving or anything like that. But, you know, when you see Sky Sports and there's somebody else that have lost their manager, of course it goes through your mind. But I just thought Forest Green, it quite suits him. More southern, I know. His family, he's had family in London. I don't know whether he still does, but it's kind of further south. I see it as a little bit of a free hit. They aren't, in my eyes, a League One club. I mean, they are because they've got there, but no one's expecting them to kind of be in that playoff positions with the size of the clubs that there are in that league. So I think they probably want to see good football and see where we can take them. Obviously, it was a big jump from the National League straight into League One, but fair play to him. I was obviously disappointed. Like I said earlier, I wanted to see us kind of building to something. Him have a real good go at getting us promoted next season, but it wasn't to be. And I don't get attachments to managers anymore because it's not worth it, because they don't stick around and we don't get them for very long. In my 12 years of supporting Notts now, the longest, Neil maybe. Sean Derry was here for a little while, but other than that, sometimes you're talking 2 or 3 managers a season, so you just can't get bogged down. I just hope at some stage in the future that we're going to see someone have a few seasons at it. But it's what it is. He's left. I saw someone on Twitter actually say we could stop this whole Neil Ian debate now. I'm glad that's over, and I hope we're not going to go into the new manager Ian debate, because it's all over, and I'm sick of hearing about it. You just got to back whoever the new manager is, whether we've heard of him or not. Go into the season fresh, see what our summer signings are, and we go again. We're going for promotion. I'd like to hope we're going for top spot, because I'm sick of getting playoffs, because I'm sick of losing in them every season. But you've got to back whoever it is, and we'll go from there, and I'm sure we'll learn much more about them.
Stell, what was your take on Ian leaving?
Yeah, sorry to see him go. You can understand it. I think exactly what Chloe says. I think she's hit the nail on the head there. From a Forest Green perspective, a real good appointment for them, because their chairman's got a fair bit of money, as we know, but they're not a big club, and they're not going to be going there with any external pressure on them, any big expectations. There might be a few internal ones, but I think they can have a go at playing. Well, let's go up there and play some good football. Ian Burchnall gets them playing that way. He will be playing with theoretically better players, work and let's have a go and see where they can go at. From a Notts perspective, we wish him well, and again, Chloe's dead right. Put the Neil Ardley, Ian Burchnall debate to bed for good now. There's a name to throw in the mix. Neil Ardley, if he loses the final, what about him? Having him back, jokingly. It's whoever comes in, let's exactly get behind them. That's what you've got to do. It's what I've been urging people to do with Ian Burchnall. Once Neil Ardley's gone, that's cut football. It's cutthroat. Sentiment, yes, we were talking about emotion earlier, but sentiment has sometimes got to be left behind, and you've got to move on, and you've got to move on quickly. So again, we're at a point where we need to. Well, we want the brothers, so the directors and owners, to make the right appointment. The new man will come in. We'll get excited again when new players start coming in, added to the ones that are going to still be here. And exactly like Chloe says, we need to hit the ground running and go for that top spot, because this division is murder to get out of. And again, we can't leave it to the playoffs. But if we have to, we have to. But we've got to go for that top spot. And and Ian Burchnall going, it shows exactly what happens with slipping down the league. You leave yourself like a carcass with the vultures circling, whether that's for your players or for your manager. While you're in a lower league or out the league, then the bigger fish will come around and just cherry pick. And there's not a great deal you can do. Now, hopefully, Notts have got a decent amount of compensation for it, because he's under contract. So hopefully there'll be a few pennies in the kitty again, and that can get reinvested in the team. But this season shows that there's no guaranteed way of getting out this division, because you've had 3 clubs throw money at it. Yes, 2 finished top 2, but 2 of them, Wrexham and Chesterfield, will be playing in the National League again next season, and you wouldn't back against them reinvesting in the summer. So you've got to compete with that. But I think we've got the basis and the nucleus of a good team. Yes, I think Carl Wotton will go. Possibly one of Ruben and Cal might go. But this is where recruitment supersedes everything. It's all about what you bring into the building. I must admit, with Alex Lacey gone, Dion Kelly-Evans gone, big calls they are. And you assume whoever's made that decision has done it on the basis they are confident that they're bringing better players in through the door to replace them.
Just to square the circle away with Ian moving to Forest Green, and I think he's done an adequate job at best while he's been here. For me, it's been two playoff failures. But what I would say is, I think I have no criticism of Ian whatsoever of leaving Notts County to go to a club 2 divisions higher, right? And however we kind of arrogantly say we're a bigger club than Forest Green Rovers, okay? Forest Green Rovers are playing League One football, right? We're in the National League. And the reality is we're a million miles away from League One right now. Whatever you say about size of fan base, we are right now a million miles away from playing in League One. We as fans look at it through the prism and the lens of a supporter. It is Ian's professional business, yeah? And I think you've mentioned this before, Stel. It's undoubtedly harder for Ian to make a career as a head coach or as a manager, having not played the game. Okay, doesn't mean you can't do well, but it makes it harder for him to get his opportunities, to get his chances. And I think when you get an opportunity to go to a League One club, good on him, take it. You know, a lot of us talk about 3-4 year projects, and I'm going to move on to this in a minute and kind of, I want to compare a little bit and get Stel's thoughts on Forest, with how long Steve Cooper's been there and got the club and turned it around in a very short period of time, compared to kind of a model that we are looking at, a 4-year project. Well, in this 4-year project, we've lost a head coach. The star striker for the last 3 years is, I would think, 95% certain going to be moving on. And you'd either let the 2 star players that scored 40 goals between them last season either cash in before a board is kicked this season, or run the risk of them leaving at the end of the season for nothing. So I understand what people say when they talk about foundation stones and all the rest of it, but the reality is those foundation stones are constantly moving. As it stands, we've got to replace Kyle Wootton. I don't think that's easy. I don't think that is easy at all. And I think if we get a striker, if we're going to play like for like, as a lone striker up front, scoring 20 goals, that is a big ask. That is a really, really big ask. In terms of Ian leaving, Chloe, are you kind of bitterly disappointed, bit nonplussed, glass half full, half empty? What's your take on it?
I think half full, half empty problems it up a little bit. Like I said earlier, I've stopped getting trying to build a.
Oh, I think we're just losing Chloe. Might be worth log out and log in, Chloe. We can't quite hear you at the minute. Let's get a few thoughts. Chris Gosling, if we get an offer for Ruben, I think we need to seriously consider it, unless we can get him to sign a contract extension with the compo from Forest Green Rovers. Andrew Blatherwick, IB, will be taking his team to Portsmouth, Sheffield Wednesday, Derby. The size of FGR is not the draw. It is the size of the opponents he will be facing. Fundamentally, Andrew, I agree. It's the standard of the league in which he will be being a head coach. And it is no comparison between League One and the National League, I'm afraid. Nick G, how many seasons can we sustain being in this league? Will be interesting to see how much Chesterfield spend next season. Thought they went for broke this season. Kyle Sadler, I think Ruben is unfortunately leaving Notts this transfer window. I'm more convinced that Kel remains with us. Chloe, you're back. Hopefully you can hear us. You were talking about, do you view Ian's departure half full, half empty?
Yeah, it's like I say, I don't know what you caught of that. I'm having a nightmare. My laptop's broken. I've tried an iPad. I'm now on my phone, so we'll see how that goes. Look, I've stopped building affiliations with managers quickly. That's not to say I like them or dislike them, but they're gone like this, and then you have to kind of strip yourself away from who they are and kind of accept the new manager. So it's just easier for me to just sit and watch it as a fan and make my decision afterwards. like we say, I can't blame him at all for going. He's created a good style of football for us. Enjoyable one. It's been entertaining most of the games, don't get me wrong, not all of them, and maybe not that Grimsby game for us, but like I say, he's brought some good players in, whether that was he had any influence or not, whether that was just our kind of model falling into place. But it's been enjoyable. But realistically, like you say, we're still here, 3 seasons on, so maybe it didn't work out, it didn't work. We try again. We're going to go with a new set of players, completely new set of players. Nothing comes as a surprise to me anymore. But I know you were talking about these 4-year projects. For me, yes, this manager's got to hit the ground running, especially like Cooper has. It's not a case of I want to spend another 3 or 4 years building in this league and then going up. No, I want to go up next season. That's the dream. But to then build on from there, I'm hoping the manager wants to stick around and build something and hopefully take us up a couple of leagues, or hopefully up to League One, which would be incredible from us with how long we've been down here. That's what I want to see in terms of my long-term goal. I just want to see someone stick around and actually stick with the club and build with us. But yeah, look, it is what it is. He's gone. I'm not sure how I feel, which is probably sums everything up. I know we were having a debate whether you liked Ian or not, and we were completely 2 ends of the scale, a lot of Notts fans. I backed him while he was here, and I'll do the same with the next manager.
Okay. Chris Gosling, they don't like meat in Forest Green IB, so we'd have to be in a plant fight, not a dog fight, if they're in the battle for relegation. Zedo. Ian did okay, but only 2 signings in lineup versus Grimsby signed in the IB era. If not signing players by committee, it's a worry. No experienced coach with no say is a bigger worry. Stephen McDonald, hello from Glasgow. I think Stephen's one of those that travels down from the north. We've got a few in Scotland. One guy, I think it's at the Big Picture House, comes down from Aberdeen. Andrew Blatherwick, I think the only way we get out of this league is as champions. 3 failed playoffs must start to have a negative psychological effect on the players. RM, we need a manager who can make us hard to beat, but still have a threat in attack. Ian Burchnall, not been said tonight, but Bryn's signing is a great bit of business, and his actions speak volumes for what he thinks about Notts. Carl Sadler agreed Bryn's is a great commitment by him. You'll see behind me 2 of his shirts, his match worns from last year. They're up there. And let's just square away compensation for Ian. I'm not party to the details of his contract, but it would be standard procedure that Forest Green would not have been given permission to speak to Ian without them agreeing to a fixed level of compensation that I would have expected to be in Ian's contract. So therefore, the way these discussions normally go is that Dale Vince, and you mentioned this, Dale, he's a good guy, actually. I like Dale. He's a bit, eccentric is the wrong word. He's not conventional, but I was quite impressed with him when I've met him a couple of times. He would have made a formal approach to Notts. Notts will have explained Ian's contractual position, which, let's be honest, right, Dale Vince would already have known because he would have been in contact with Ian's agent, because he wouldn't be making the approach unless he knew Ian was going to be up for the job. This is how these things happen. And so Notts would then have said, right, the clause in his contract that you need to beat is X. He'll either then haggle or agree it, and on that basis permission would be granted, and effectively it would have already been done, a personal deal. And I suspect at a much lower level there would have been some form of clause in Michael Doyle's contract as well. So Notts will have pocketed a fixed sum. I've seen some quite hefty sums. I'm not sure it would be as much as people might think, but yes, Notts would get compensation. Not enough. I'll take the words out of a few people's mouths to make Notts County profitable this season. It still cost the brothers an awful lot of money over time. Still, I want to ask, we flagged this up briefly in the last show with Lee, and I want to get a professional's viewpoint on this. We talk a lot about projects. We talk a lot about gradually building. You know, some fans talk about, We've improved this season because we've got, is it 12 more points than last season? Still finished 5th, right? And we were actually 1 game further away in the playoffs. So it's a personal view. I don't view that as progress whatsoever. But the point I kind of want to understand from you is that Forest, like ourselves, have gone through an awful lot of managers. Many of them end up being deeply unpopular, not dissimilar to us. And Forest started last season with Chris Hughton, who was very unpopular. They removed Chris Hughton. Steve Cooper came in. Now, he didn't have 2, 3, 4 transfer windows, right? He didn't have a full pre-season, yeah. Nor, for instance, did Alex Neil at Sunderland when he came in January, yeah. And Sunderland have failed to get out of League One for 3 or 4 years. Those two have come in and have kind of just grabbed the club by the scruff of the neck, transformed results in a very short period of time. No 4-year plan or anything like that. How feasible is it? Because everything in football is instant now, isn't it? Do you get a vibe with a manager that instantly seems to fit? Because tell you what, fair play to Steve Cooper. I think he's been a perfect fit for Forest. But to somehow suggest he's been the end of a 4-year plan by Forest, and after Chris Hughton, we're going to then move to Steve Cooper, it's a load of rubbish. They've chopped and changed managers in the way that we have, but they've then got a really good one who hasn't needed to improve by 8 points this season, 10 points next season. They've kind of just got it. I mean, how attainable or unattainable is that for Notts?
Oh, it's attainable, of course it is, because of the examples you've mentioned there: Steve Cooper, Alex Neil.
Challoner at Stockport would be the other classic this season.
Exactly, yeah. So it can happen, but I think what you've got to try and realise, everybody, is that what is being said and the messaging that comes out in 4 or 5 year plans and things like that, is a lot of that is obviously PR speak to just try and lower expectations, dampen expectations, because you're dead right. Everybody wants success and they want it today, now, here, this minute. We don't want to think about winning, getting promotion in 3 years' time. We want it now. We want it this season. 3 lots of playoffs. We're fed up. We want it now. But the fact of the matter is, just like every other club, for every Steve Cooper, Alex Neil, Dave Challoner, there are probably 5 managerial changes, and Notts and Forest can both attest to that don't work out.
Yeah.
That quite conceivably could come in and hit the ground running and just click, but they don't. And you go through 5, 10, however many managers until you find one that does. And it just happens. And you're right, it is just I'd liken it to a bit of a jigsaw puzzle. Trying to find a manager and a team and a style of playing it. It's like fitting the pieces of a jigsaw together. And sometimes you can be close, like Notts can say they've been last 3 seasons. You might be missing a couple of pieces of that jigsaw. You can't quite finish it off. But sometimes you get a manager that comes in and it just clicks. And that's obviously what's happened. Steve Cooper, Dave Challoner. Now, these are obviously good managers, good coaches. It's not luck. It isn't luck that it happens, but it's just something that clicks. And Paul, your affinity with Leicester, you go back to Ranieri at Leicester when they won the league, the biggest sporting upset ever in any sport of anything ever. And he's sacked 6 months later.
Yeah.
So he's a great manager that clicked at the right time with the right group of players, with the right mentality, with confidence, with a bit of luck, with everything happening around it. And it just happens. The next season, it doesn't happen. Now, has he gone from being the best manager in the world ever to, he's no good, get rid? And that's what happens in football. It is a moment in time, constantly spinning wheels that need to align. And sometimes it can be more luck than judgment in terms of the actual appointments, but it helps. You've got to make the right appointments, the right manager, the right group of players. There's no team achieved anything without a decent bunch of players. But to gel it all together, that's the sort of magic ingredient, that missing jigsaw piece, if you like. You can go through 20 managers and Notts have done before you find one but that doesn't mean it's not attainable. That this next manager, that's why I put not pressure on the owners, but you put so much importance on the appointment of the next manager, because it could be that missing piece. It could be that magic piece that just, we're not far away, but we're not quite there. But we could just get a manager who can bring in 1 or 2 signings and have a way about him and a way of playing and a manner that all the players like and gel together, and it could just fly. But like I say, that is a big if, and it's a big decision. But that's why it shouldn't be rushed. It should be, do everything you can to make the right decision.
What else have we got? Stuart Edwards. I'm sorry. I liked Ian, as you could see, a philosophy, and we stuck to it. Personally, I would have liked to have seen how he would have done with another pre-season of recruitment. Charlie Bubbles, another season of struggle, unfortunately. Zedo, spine of team, recruitment will be crucial as needs complete refill. Physical presence, centre-back, centre midfield and centre-forward needed. Full-backs, one filled, and forward line looks thin. Eli and Cairo, third choice at best. Phil Buxton. Steve Cooper has put round pegs in round holes. What would Stell think of John Thompson and Stuart Pearce as his assistant? Duncan Comrie, Challoner and Cooper, hang on, one of those more, probably had a say in which players they wanted to sign. Kieran Fry, does Stell fancy the job? Well, you may see with some of our flock bunging a fiver on him, being odds-on favourite tomorrow. So that'd be good if Radio Nottingham rung you up, Stell, said, Stell, are you in for the job? Oh, yeah, he's 7-4 on for the job.
Can we kill this now? That's not happening. That's not happening. No.
It is a prime case, though, of how you manipulate the bookmaking market on a National League manager's job. You know, AD Clark, don't think we need another project to hit the ground running. It's now time for an experienced manager to get us out this league. Kyle Sadler, a thought. Have a lot of these teams been at very low points during the season? I remember Stockport lost to us at Meadow Lane and then subsequently sacked, and the new manager comes in and views him. That is kind of exactly my point, Kyle. Sometimes you can make a terrible start. It tends to be how you finish a season, not necessarily how you start it. Chloe, let's just bring another dynamic into it. So Forest are now in the Premier League. I know you sent me a few messages with your granddad over the weekend and all the rest of it. It's difficult because we as fans, we are a 2 football club city. We remain a 2 football club city. But clearly we kind of drop another notch down the relevancy order of things, you know. And I've said it many times before that, you know, I'm 59, Stell's a lot younger, but he's still a lot older than you. And when I grew up from the age of 7 in 1970 through to 1984, I never saw Notts get relegated. And I saw them go from 90th in the Football League when they signed Don Masson through to playing in the top flight of English football. So I grew up as a Notts fan thinking, hey, Forest might be winning European Cups, right? But a year after they're winning European Cups, I'm going in the away end at the City Ground and we're beating them, you know? So I had a wonderful time. I do feel incredibly bad for you, for our even younger supporters, for my son who's 25, who I think he thinks I make it up that I used to go and watch Notts beat Forest and play Man U and Liverpool and all the rest of it. It must be really, really difficult, not to mention soul destroying at times. And this is not anti-Forest, but talk to me as a young fan that has never really seen Notts have any success, yeah, and us to kind of slip further down that football pecking order.
Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people. Look, I've grown up in Nottingham. Everybody I went to school with is a Forest fan. There was one other Notts fan in my year, and we weren't a small school. And it's just, I know everybody says there's like you're so irrelevant to Forest, but I get so much stick for being a Notts fan. And like my dad doesn't seem to understand that. He's like, well, all of my mates, they're not bothered about Notts. They want to see Notts do well. You slip down a generation, and if you go to school with everyone that's a Forest and you're not, do you know what I mean? I get hassle all the time. This weekend was no different, obviously. Social media is just swarmed. Obviously, being from Nottingham, and knowing a lot of Nottingham Forest fans, friends of friends, and it's just been constant, which I can't blame them. Do you know what I mean? They're back in the Premier League after 23 years or whatever it is. Of course, they're going to be like that. But, you know, once in the same week, we've lost a playoff. And then you kind of have to deal with everyone being on such a high, the whole city. Everybody thinks the whole of Nottingham's on a high. You're forgetting about the little portion of Notts fans that are at rock bottom. This is the lowest we've ever been, realistically. Whether you think we've had a good season or not, this is the lowest we've ever been in our history. Yeah. In my lifetime, in everybody's lifetime. It's not, like you say, I do feel sorry for myself a little bit. We've obviously got some generational Notts fans in my family. And like you say, Paul, we've spoken a lot about what we have been. I was unlucky enough to even start supporting them the year after we won League Two. So I didn't even see that. So all I've seen is relegation and playoff losses and cup losses. And it's difficult to just pick yourself up and think, we'll go again. But we'll all keep supporting them. But it's tough to kind of deal with Notts as it personally. This is, I know it's not for everyone, because they'll have mates who are Forest who won't give them stick at all. Obviously want to see Notts do well, but from my personal experience, for Notts to then lose and them to then win, it's just adding something else to the dynamic, and you do hit a low. And obviously I'm happy for a lot of my family and friends, for them personally, not particularly for Forest as a club, but for them personally. I want to see them happy, of course I do. But there's just a lot of people that they've never been to a game in their life, and they're just making out that it's the best thing ever, and that's the really frustrating bit. But look, you've just got to sit back and support your own club, kind of forget what's happening over there. Good for them, good for the city, as people keep saying. But we'll concentrate on us and we'll keep going. But yeah, it's been a tough few years, but here we are, going like to the likes of Gateshead. I mean, someone I think I saw on Twitter, might have been Facebook or somewhere, that we've got the same gap between us and Forest and Newcastle and Gateshead, and that just tells you everything at the minute. As much as you want to say we're a big club, look where we are. We're now National League and Forest are in the Prem, and it is what it is, and not good for them, but we've got to concentrate on ourselves. We are a two-team city. People keep forgetting about us, but we're still here. We're still bringing crowds in of 6,000 on average, over 6,000. We got a crowd of 12,000 and 13,000 earlier this season. We've got a core fan base of Notts fans who are going to keep coming and keep coming. Obviously, you get the floaters, and you get a lot of Forest fans keep coming over, which is great. And it's nice to have kind of that balance. But look, we are where we are. Leave them be. If we can get a few players in on loan like we have done, we've built a good relationship club-wise internally. And let them get on with it, let them celebrate, and hopefully in the next couple of years, our time will come.
Well said, Chloe. Hang in there. And I think as Lippy Jane has mentioned there, my favourite phrase, character building. That's what it is, right? After I'm dead, Stell's in his bath chair, we will be up there, all right? And you'll be enjoying some good days. Stick with it. You know, I don't really understand gang culture, but our colours are black and white, and you don't change your colours. You don't change your colours, no matter how difficult it may come. Stell, were you a Derby lad? Did you grow up a Rams fan or not?
Yeah. My dad took me to my first game when I was about six or seven. Derby, the baseball ground, yeah.
And were you? Because sometimes it's difficult when you're at a very young age and you're already exposed to professional ranks, going to, I don't know, apprentices, schools of excellence, whatever they were called. Were you kind of like quite an avid Derby fan? Your dad was a Derby fan. You were kind of like indoctrinated, or not?
Yeah. Derby. Yeah, Derby's. It was our club. That's the team. Born in Derby, raised, took to Derby. That's how I was brought up as Derby fan. My dad's a Derby fan. That's it. It's same as anyone. You sort of fall in love with it, and that's it. Now, once you get into the game, and like I say, I signed for Derby from school. But
Your
once you're
dad
in the
must have been
game,
made up at that point then.
you what? Sorry.
Your dad must have been absolutely made
Oh
up.
yeah, of course. Well, I say even now, the hardest thing I've ever had to do in football, it had nothing to do with Derby, was to tell me dad. My dad was a massive supporter. My mum as well when she was alive, but my dad he would go everywhere and watch us. And the hardest thing I had to do when I was retiring, packing up, when I was at I forget where I was at then, Corby, and I've been down and I couldn't do it. 35 legs had gone. The hardest thing I had to do was to tell me dad that's it, Dad. You're not going to have a Saturday afternoon to come and watch me, because he obviously watched me all through, being 7, 8, 9, 10 junior football, Saturdays, Sundays, ferried me everywhere. He used to work on the railway, so he used to come to a lot of away games on the free train passes. He wouldn't pay, obviously.
Yeah, Chloe's family's all on the railways as well.
He used to go on the railway all over the country to watch us. And yeah, that was the hardest thing I ever had, to tell my old man that's it, Dad. I'm done. 30, nearly 30 years of following me and watching me, and that was it. So yeah, football is. We spoke about it right from the get-go. It's an emotional business. What Chloe says there is heartbreaking but so true. The ups and downs of football, the agony. And while people will say, yeah, it's good for the city, it's good for this, and you see people celebrating, but it doesn't make it any better for you. Doesn't make it any better for your club. This is, Notts at our club. We've got an attachment to Notts for different reasons. Obviously, you two supporting, as I was, Derby, and mine was sort of a so you meet your wife, isn't it? Your marriage sort of thing. I met Notts in later life, and I learned to love them from that. So but whatever your connection is, it hurts. This honestly, this weekend has been, this last week, since losing to Grimsby in the way we did. Then seeing Grimsby beat Wrexham, then seeing Solihull with our ex-Notts manager getting to a chance to get promoted into the league, and you're going, what? Why us? Why can't that be us? You desperately want it. It's just like being a player. Like I say, you've got to be cutthroat, ruthless. You want it so much. You're desperate for it, desperate for success, desperate for winning. That's what it's all about. We can argue and talk and dissect the way we play and everything, but it's about winning and success, and there's jealousy and envy whenever you see other teams celebrating. There's jealousy at Forest in the Premier League, absolute jealousy at Port Vale winning the League Two playoffs, jealousy at any team, jealousy we've had. Was it Portsmouth and Luton celebrating at Meadow Lane in the last 4 or 5 years, celebrating their promotions? Jealousy at Grimsby fans celebrating last week. Hate it. Hate seeing other people celebrating when you feel like rubbish. So, but that's the emotion that football, and that's when you care. That's when you know it means so much. It ruins your week. It ruins your weekend, and no football supporter needs telling that it means that much. But that's just where football is. It's under your skin. It's in all of our blood, and you can't get away from it. But it hurts, and there's no two ways about it. It hurts where Notts are, and again, remind myself throughout whenever I've been talking about it, is just, let's just remember the level we're at. This is the lowest that Notts have ever been in 100+ years of existence. So let's not bull up the teams that we're playing against any bigger. That yes, they've got money, yes, they've got Hollywood owners and this, that, the other, but we're Notts County, and we've got a decent competitive budget. We've got the history. We've got nothing to be scared of. Nothing to be scared of. But it doesn't make it any easier to get out of this division.
I think you're about 7-1 on after that spiel, Stella, or the book is even more money's gone on you now. But I mean, I think you hit a lot of nails on heads there, and I don't particularly want to go on it because I bang on about these. I have a lot of. It's difficult because we all have a go at rivals. I have a lot of respect for what Grimsby have done in this playoff campaign, because I do think there is a little bit of an excuse culture at Notts at the minute. As you just said there, why should don't worry about the opposition, okay? You control your own destiny. Grimsby have hung in there. They beat us in extra time, with a day less preparation. and they've gone to Wrexham and they've won. Fair play to them. And it would have been very easy to roll over. And possibly the single biggest, and I'm not a pro, you are, so this might be rubbish, but I know there is a big view among Notts fans of this, and I'll welcome Chloe's views, that strip away the stats, strip away all the other stuff, whether we are mentally resilient enough, ruthless enough. I watched the Forest game, and I thought the Joe Worrell interview after the game was exceptional. And I thought he encapsulated an awful lot about being a pro, and he also encapsulated an awful lot about the influence and the way Steve Cooper has changed. Yeah, and Steve Cooper is not a tactical genius or anything like that, but he spoke with emotion, he spoke with pride, and gave an insight. And for me, by far the most revealing interview that I heard from any player this season at Notts, other than the Magpie Circle podcast with all the players, obviously, was Kyle Cameron's after Grimsby in the league. I don't know if you remember it, Stel. He was very honest. Grimsby beat us, if you remember, late free kick, headed goal, another first header in our box. And he said, perhaps we're not streetwise enough. We can't defend the lead. Don't know why. That's not good enough. Part of me thinks at that point, and I may be oversimplifying here, that's clearly an Achilles heel that we've had throughout much of the season. And ultimately, Grimsby have done exactly the same to us again in a playoff game. And I don't quite know what it is. I think defensively, you can't expect to go up and have the 9th worst defensive record of the top 10 teams. And I don't know whether it's nastiness, ruthlessness, dropping down injured, all of those sorts of things. We just sometimes seem just a bit too nice, just a bit too nice. We've all heard the stories about Neil Warnock, Don O'Riordan, Mark Draper tell the stories. After not scored a goal, a player was told to go down injured within a minute of the restart to disrupt the flow. And I just look at us sometimes and I just want us to be a bit nastier. Is that fair or rubbish?
I think we both agree that that's fair. I think everybody who's watched Notts over the last few years would say that's fair. I agree. I've said it myself. And there's no worse damning criticism that there obviously is. But for me, as a professional, where it is win at all costs, or I was a professional with win at all costs, to be called too nice. Oh, no. Don't mind that in general life. Being called nice, that's great. Loads of nice people. That's not a bad thing in normal day-to-day life. Football's different. Football is a profession. It's cutthroat. It's win at all costs. Being nice that's derogatory. You don't want to be nice. And I have questioned whether Notts are a bit too nice this season on many an occasion.
Chloe?
Completely agree. I think I had a really bad feeling going into playoffs, and I think this is what was eating at me. How many times this season did we go and win a game, not even just last minute, but by the scruff of the neck? Grimsby away, maybe we had a decent result at Wrexham away that first Monday. I said, I think it was for my granddad, it had an odd feeling all day. It didn't, obviously I was in at 9 a.m, so it wasn't nice sitting in the stadium thinking I've got to wait till tonight to be able to actually watch this 90 minutes. It's not a nice atmosphere, but it just felt really flat. Obviously, I didn't see the players or anything. It was just a weird atmosphere. And I said, I don't think we've got the Chesterfield game the year before that we beat at home in the playoffs. I don't think we've got that in us this season. I don't know what it is. We don't go down and win a free kick. Everybody else is doing it. It's a little bit like England. We've done it for quite a while. We've tried to do it the proper way, play proper football, not go rolling around on the floor. And I'm not trying to say I want us to cheat or anything like that, but
just this ruthlessness. Grimsby had it. Grimsby wanted it. I'm not saying we didn't want to go up, and I'm not saying that we didn't want to win the game, but Grimsby, they were every single second ball that they shouldn't have been winning, they were winning. If I don't know whether everybody's watched all the National League playoff games. I have personally. It's a set piece league. If this National League thing campaign has shown you anything in the last few games in the playoffs, it's all set pieces, winning free kicks on the box, winning corners, going out to win everything that you possibly can to give you that inch more. Every corner, everybody scored from corners in the last few games. I mean, that Wrexham Grimsby game, I think nearly every single goal was a set piece. We've just not got something about us, and I think Cameron was a big loss in that. And we've got people like Jim O'Brien and Michael Doyle, who obviously we've now lost Doyle, but when he played for us, we had a couple of players, Mark Ellis, people like this, who have got this fight in them and have just got this attitude. I'm not saying they want it any more than anybody else does, but they just show it. Everything's out on the pitch. And it's just, I just think we're falling a little bit short of that. Obviously, Jim O'Brien's a great personality. I'm not sure how much we're going to see him next season. I don't know what his plans are and what our plans are for him, but he's got this energy. Same with Dion Kelly-Evans and Rawlinson. These are the players that, maybe not ability-wise, these are the players I wanted on the pitch against Grimsby, because I knew what a dogfight it was going to be, and I knew how much Grimsby were going to come out and want it. I wanted these players on the pitch that will go and win you every tackle, that will put everything out on the pitch. And I just think we were too bogged down on playing the nice football, looking attractive, going winning it like that, whereas realistically, it gets to a point in the season, you can do that for 90% of the season. Like you say, Stockport didn't do anything until halfway through the season. It became a point where I really didn't care how we played. Get on that pitch, leave everything out there. We had 3 games to go. Go and win it 1-0 last kick of the game. I don't care. I think I said a couple of games before that we went into playoffs, we had 5 games that you need to win 1-0. That's all anybody's asking for. I don't care about winning 4 or 5-0. Go and win 1-0. And there's just something that is missing, and I'm hoping that this new coach, as much as brings in some talent, just brings in some kind of morals in the fact that leave everything out on the pitch, especially near the end of the season, and just have this kind of fight to go up. Because look, relentless Grimsby against Wrexham, against the top spenders of the league. They've obviously got this dream scenario. They've got this documentary that has already been ruined once by losing the trophy final. They didn't want to go and lose again. And yet relentless, gone there, away from home. They've won 2 away games and they're in the final. It's unheard of. Well, it should be, but same with Solihull. They've been relentless for the last 10 games, just churning out results. Obviously, we don't get to watch them because we're watching Notts, but they aren't winning games by playing the most amazing football. They're churning results out, winning every ball, fighting for every ball. And I just think that was missing personally, but I could go all day about it, because they're the characteristics I like to see. Obviously, the nice football is great to watch, but when you really get to the nitty gritty, especially of playoffs, I just thought we were missing that. And as much as it pains me to say, as soon as they scored in that 90+6, I kind of knew that was over for us. I was a little bit disappointed in the fact that there was a few people blowing us before going in extra time. Don't get me wrong, it was vile to concede with 30 seconds to go, conceding a ridiculous free kick that never needed to happen. We can argue about that until we're black and blue, but we then didn't have the attitude as supporters. I don't know whether this reflects what we've seen all season, but we were booing them. And I mean, you've got another half an hour to play. I mean, with that attitude, we were going nowhere. But I didn't see the players kind of really go, come on, we've got this. And it just felt a little bit flat for me, even before the game. So, look, I was bitterly disappointed, but at no point I was angry, because I'd kind of already accepted it, which is a little bit sad. And I'm just hoping we're going into next season with a bit more of a fight.
We could go on this for another hour. We're not going to. I'm conscious of everybody's time. Stel, 2 questions, same to Chloe. 1, who's going to win the playoff? And 2, who I was going to say, who's your money on? Who would be your preferred choice to be the next head coach?
Oh, right, 2 questions there to finish on. Might take me an hour to answer. Who's my money off in the playoffs? I think it's really tough, as any. I mean, Grimsby have done unbelievable, haven't they? Gone to show that you can win them 2 away games against higher placed opposition. But I think I just slightly fancy Solihull. I just think they've got real good attacking options. And they've got defensive solidity, and Chloe's dead right. The 2 centre halves scored, didn't they, against Chesterfield the other day? So I just slightly give them the edge, but it's down to the day, isn't it? Who turns up on the day? So yeah, go to Chloe, and then I'll come back for the head coach.
I was just going to do that. So let me get to Chloe for the playoff prediction to give you a bit more time. Right, Chloe, playoff prediction.
I had a funny feeling before the playoff started that Solihull were going to get to the final. It would really depend who they were playing against. I honestly thought it was going to be Wrexham. And look, they've got great form going into it. They won their 5 out of 5 before the playoffs. I'm not sure beyond that. And then they've obviously won at home. And I think I'm just edging Solihull, but it's so hard to ignore Grimsby because you can kind of take your form out of the window beyond playoffs, like before playoffs. They've gone to two big clubs, really, especially Wrexham, spent a lot of money. And they've gone and won last minute both times because they fought for it. And they're going to do that in the final. But I just think Solihull have got something about them this season that they can churn out of that result. And good luck to Neil Ardley. I hope the best for him.
I'm going to go Grimsby. I think just because of the way you're right, it's incredibly difficult. I think Solihull won the last 5 or 6 on the spin, haven't they? When you count the playoff games, I'm going to go Grimsby. Stell?
Head coach. Well, I mean, I've got no new names to throw into the mix.
Okay.
I've not really given it a great deal of thought, to be honest, because I think it is going to be a heavily modern coach-based appointment. But of the names, and it wasn't one I particularly considered before tonight, but Mike Williamson at Gateshead, I think, has got a nice sort of mix. I don't know his style of football that he plays. So again, it's just plucking a name, but he's won. He's won something. If you're asking me to pick anybody, I'd go and get Dave Challoner. But I don't see him leaving Stockport anytime soon. But yeah, Williamson, he's just won something. Lower leagues, he's been around the league, had a good career himself, been connected to some good clubs in all divisions. So maybe them connections help him when it comes to recruiting players. So yeah, if you want a name, that's it. But again, that's with no real knowledge of anything.
Okay, Chloe?
Yeah, I'm sticking to my same answer as I said earlier on in the podcast. I'm exactly the same. Gone and won something. Hopefully fits our style. I'm going to back anyone. It is what it is. I've never heard of him. I was convinced it was going to be this Kim bloke for weeks, and for days, and I've just kind of got that in my head and going, all right, then we'll give him a go. I'm quite glad that it's not. I quite like the sound of this Coventry guy, but it just worried me that he's only managed under 23s. He's not been in like a professional league or like full-time, whatever you want to call them, adult league. I don't know what else you want to call them. But yeah, I'm sticking with the same answer. He's gone and won something in the lower leagues, got some football knowledge behind him. Yeah, the Gateshead manager, Mike Williamson.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I would say Mike Williamson. Some of the points you made, Stel, he's played in all 4 divisions, well 5, because he's been player manager at Gateshead. So he's played in all 5 divisions, which I think is often a good sign. He's quite an articulate, educated, balanced character. He studied some form of Japanese meditation or something. I was reading. He's not necessarily. No, he's not. He's not. He's for me. He's quite. I wouldn't put that to be able to.
I wouldn't put that way up the list of requirements. that is narrowing the field down massively.
No, what the point I'm trying to make is, for me, he is a character who can deport himself as a manager, and I think who has kind of made that transition from being a player to being a manager, which is not always easy. They scored 99 goals last season, scored a lot of goals. I think he'd be good for the people like Carl Cameron and Cal Roberts, given that they're both Geordies and he's got the North East credentials. My understanding is that Hartlepool are looking very closely at him at the minute, along with Andy Woodman. I'd be surprised if he's manager at Gateshead at the start of the season. I think he kind of thinks it's probably the right time to go. One name that hasn't been mentioned, who I think is definitely worth a shout, is Daryl McMahon from Dagenham. No one's mentioned him, but I think he's decent. For me, possibly the single most imperative criteria. You said it, start the program. Got to be a winner. You've got to be a winner, and he has proven he is a winner by winning National League North. And I'm sorry, the big question mark for me with Ian, because I think Ian will do okay at Forest Green. For me, Ian is a purist. He's not a winner. He's not a winner. He's not got a promotion. He's not got a championship. And I think with Notts County being in the National League, you've got to be able to put that on your CV very quickly at Notts County. I think if you come into Notts County, I think you get 2 years max to get the club promoted. 2 years max. No matter how much you talk about foundation stones, projects, and all the rest of it, we are starting our 4th season in the National League next year. That's a sobering thought. 4th. And one too early yet. Neil Bishop, been in touch with Neil today. Neil has become the co-Gainsborough, I think it's Trinity, I know they went bust a couple of times, Gainsborough Trinity manager today. So I think he, a bit longer term, is one to keep an eye out, and tying in with your thoughts, Stell, of having a link or a relationship with the club that gives them more of a draw to be able to hold on to them a bit longer. Anyway, we've done 90 minutes. That's more than enough. Thank you ever so much indeed, Stell, for your time as always tonight. Expect a call 6:30 in the morning, Radio Nottingham. You're 7 to 4 on to be the next Notts manager, Stell. Can we do an interview with you, please? And you can blame the entire Magpie Circle flock and me for manipulating the bookmakers betting. You're not going to live this one down, You're
I was going to say, yeah, I might go have a pound myself just for the hell of it.
Chloe, thank you very much. So you had a few computer gremlins. We look forward in terms of this season. This will still be the penultimate show. We will do another show on the day that Notts appoint their new manager. The latest from Notts, having spoken earlier today, is nothing imminent. So read into that what you will. Thank you very much indeed, Stell. Thank you very much, Chloe. Thank you to everyone tonight for all your thoughts, observations. Big show tonight. Lots of interaction. Lots of people dialing in. Thank you very much indeed. And we will next be back when we know the identity of Notts County's new head coach. Take care for now. Bye-bye.
Cheers.